Hello, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach. And I am here with yet another high demand coach and expert. It is the one, the only Andrei Mincov, who became an intellectual property lawyer when his father caught a radio station stealing his music to advertise for Samsung. He filed his very first complaint and case from the bottom court all the way up to one level short of the Supreme Court of Russia and won. At the pinnacle of his career, he was recognized as one of Russia's top 5 intellectual property lawyers, and Andrei helped many multi-billion-dollar clients protect their intellectual property, including, you might have heard of them, Apple, Microsoft, Sony, Dreamworks, J.K. Rowling, and Ford. He moved to Canada and founded the Trademark Factory International using a unique business model, and they've helped thousands of entrepreneurs to trademark their brands with a guaranteed result for a guaranteed budget. Well, Andrei, glad to have you on the show. We're excited to jump into this. I've heard you say if it's worth promoting, it's worth protecting. Tell us a little bit, what do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, excited to be on your show. And I think that, this is not just a saying. It's one of our trademarks that we've trademarked. And my point with that was, if you're spending any time, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're spending any time, any money, any effort trying to promote your brand, to go out there and have people find out about you, remember you, whether you're spending any money on ads, it means you think internally that you've got something valuable. So it's crazy for you to not also want to protect that, because if you're not building your brand, you're building a brand for someone else, right? And that's a big problem.
Wow. And so you've experienced this firsthand. As we kind of mentioned in the bio here, this is something that's not just an abstract idea. It's something that's really meaningful and personal to you. Tell us a little bit about what happened with your father, and how did all of that go down?
So back in the day, as you mentioned in the bio, I was living in Russia, still attending my first law school there, and one day I come back from law school and see my dad is just raging, like he's mad as hell. I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, we caught this radio station that took this song that I actually used to sing with him when I was a little boy, like I was like, I don't know, 9, 10, 8, whatever. Like I used to sing it on stage. Like he'd do a concert, he'd call me for the last couple of songs. I'd sing those couple of songs, and I'd get all the flowers and all the candies, right? But so it was one of those songs that they took and they turned that into an ad for an event by Samsung. So he called the radio station, and he told them that they could just take his music and use it as they pleased. To which they said that he should just sit down, shut up, and be grateful that they were making his music even more popular. And if you knew my dad, you'd know right away it was a wrong thing to say to him. So he said, okay, great, I'll see you in court. He slammed down the phone. And the funny thing was that it was 1996 when Russia has just transitioned from post-Soviet copyright laws, which really didn't protect anyone, to more or less modern age free market copyright laws, which did give authors protection. Problem is there were no lawyers who actually had any experience with that stuff, right? So he came and asked if I could help him with this. And I said, well, I know nothing about intellectual property. Said, well, aren't you in law school? And I'm like, well, yeah. Like I've always admired him. I've always wanted to gain his approval. And I said, well, if you don't mind me, learning this as I go and build this plane as I flew it, I'd be glad to do that. And so we did. And I, as you mentioned, I started a lawsuit. Took us about 2.5 years to take it from all the way the bottom to the second highest court in the nation, and we won, and the rest is history. And I always say he was my first and favorite client, right? Because before I left Russia in 2007, there had not been a single federal TV channel that I had not sued over his music, and I've won every time, and I only had to do it once. Because next time we would catch them doing something stupid, all I had to do is just say, we got you again. But they each wanted to get their to test the legal system with their theories, and every time I was able to win. So it was fun little journey there. And then when I moved to Canada, I realized I wanted to kind of switch from copyright into trademarks and more in entrepreneurial kind of stuff then, because I really wasn't feeling that much of a connection there.
Yeah. That's actually where I wanted to go next, because I think a lot of folks, the whole idea of intellectual property and the law, it's overwhelming. So is there a difference between copyrights and trademarks? We see the little C and the TM and the R. Like, what does all of that mean? Give us kind of the simple need to know for a business owner.
Sure. So I actually wrote a book about this many years ago. I had my 9-year-old daughter proofread it, because I wanted to make sure that whatever is in the book can be understood by a 9-year-old. And one of the core concepts there is understanding the difference between different types of IP. So copyright protects content, right? Your music, your videos, your texts, your images, your photographs, your software. So the stuff that content, right? The trademarks protect identity, right? So if you go to a store and you pass through the shelves of ketchup, some of them are going to say Heinz and some of them are going to say something else. There's the same glop in that bottle, but the trademarks allow you to pick one ketchup from all the other ones. Patents, it would be the third main type, and patents protect inventions. So you came up with a genius idea, brand new product, or a brand new way of doing things. That's what you can protect with patents. So intellectual property is really interesting in the sense that it protects different things different ways. And most people who don't really understand how it works always get pissy about, how can you own a dictionary word? Like, you didn't invent the word for trademarks. I'm like, that's not how trademarks work. The purpose of protection with trademarks is not that you have to come up with a new word, like Apple. Like they didn't invent the word Apple, but their brand is worth a few $1 billion. Well, a few dozen $1 billion, a few $100 billion. And it's not because they came up with a name. It's because they built a very strong brand that now they have the monopoly over, to be able to say to all of their competitors, you can't use that. And that's what trademarks do.
Yeah. So how does someone know whether or not it's time for a trademark? It's one of those things that can feel like, we'll get to it later. And then you don't really find out that you need it until you need it. So how do folks know when the right time is to apply?
So you actually said it really well. By the time you've become big and successful, someone will have trademarked your brand. Might as well be you. There's stuff, a few ways that you can look into it, but I came up with a framework that I think should make it really easy. So first question you ask yourself, with this brand, are you building a business, or is it just a side hustle, a hobby, something like that? And there's nothing wrong with running a side hustle or a hobby. I'm not trying to look down at the other people, because, it's nothing wrong with that. But if it is a side hustle that you don't think you're going to grow beyond where it is today, then unless it's an ego thing, which again, there's nothing wrong with it being an ego thing, there's probably no economical or legal reason for you to own that trademark. If it is a business, then you ask yourself two questions. The first question you ask yourself is, if this business gets as successful as I hope it will be, right? Everything goes according to the plans, and the dream comes true. Will I still be selling these products or these services that I'm currently selling under the same brand 2 or 3 years from now? The reason you look at that time frame is because trademarking is a long process. You don't want to go into that process knowing that by the time you get that trademark, you won't need it anymore.
Right.
Well, why do that? But if you think that if that brand is still going to be around, you're not building a fad that's only going to last, 6 months, right? Then you ask yourself the last question. The last question is again, assuming everything goes as well as you hope it will the brand help you build that business, right? Will it help you get more customers? Will it help you get more people to find out that you exist? Will it increase your help you increase your sales conversion rates? Will it help you attract better talent? Will it help you increase valuation in the eyes of your investors? And if your answer to that question is no, it's not going to do any of that, then my advice is go back to the drawing board and come up with a brand that can. Because really, that's the big reason successful companies come up with brands, is that first you work for the brand, then the work start working for you, right? And with top talent, think about it like if you're a software developer and you have two offers on the table, one is from Google and the one is from a no-name startup. For you to go work with a no-name startup, you probably want to get paid a lot more than you will accept from Google, simply because Google's name on your resume means a lot more than no-name startup, right? And that's how it works. So if like I said, if your brand is not going to do any of that for you, come up with a different brand. And if you think it is going to do at least one of those things for you, then I would say go and trademark it as soon as possible, because the easiest time for you to get that trademark is when nobody knows you, is when you don't have angry competitors, when you don't have jealous copycats, when the brand means nothing to pretty much nobody but you, right? You may go and do a small market test to confirm that people want what it is that you're planning to offer to them. And if you see a glimmer of hope that this might be the thing, go and trademark it before someone else figures out that it's the thing.
Yeah, that's so good. So business is getting more and more international. It feels like every day now, right? Especially post-COVID, everyone's on Zoom. The boundaries are getting less and less obvious from a business standpoint. How do trademarks work internationally? Is there anything special that a business needs to concern itself with?
Yeah. So there's no such thing as a global trademark protection. Trademarks are done on a per country basis. Right? There are international treaties that make it easier for you to file one trademark in multiple jurisdictions at the same time. But in the end of the day, you're still going to end up with separate trademark registrations, and that's going to cost you a pretty penny. So I have a rule of thumb for what business owners should consider in terms of where they should trademark the brand. First, you always start with your home country, right? And when I say home country, it's if you're filing in your personal name, well, obviously where you sit, the country where you're the citizen. If it's a company, then where the company is registered. That you always start there. There's no other option. The second tier of countries that you should look at is where you think you're going to be making a lot of revenue from, right? If you're a Canadian business, for example, but most of your sales come from the U.S., you want to do Canada and U.S., right? If you think you're going to get some sales from European Union people, get a trademark there. By the way, with European Union, you can actually get one single trademark that covers 27 countries. But don't go crazy with that, because, just because you might have an occasional sale from, one person in some other country doesn't necessarily mean you need a trademark there.
Yeah.
My magic number is 30K a year. If you have at least 30K a year from a certain jurisdiction, go get a trademark there. The third tier is countries where you have a lot of expenses in, whether you're targeting ads to a particular country or you have an office, a branch, something like that. Again, if you show interest in a particular country, so much so that you're spending money to have presence there, protect your brand there, right? And there, the number is even lower. I think it's like 5K a year. And lastly, the fourth category, which a lot of people don't realize, is that if you have physical products made overseas, even if you don't plan to sell a single item there, you get a trademark there, because if you don't and somebody else does, then they can stop you from exporting your own products that you paid for out of that country to where you want to sell it, right? And we had a situation with an e-bike company out of the U.S. I can't provide specifics, but it was just a complete horror show. So the guy found a factory in China, made a huge order to make those e-bikes. So they paid for the order, they made the bikes, they put those bikes in a container, they put that container on a ship, and then the captain of the ship got presented with a demand letter for someone who trademarked that brand and said, you can't take that container out of China because we own that trademark, and it came to our knowledge that you are trying to transport bikes marked with our trademark. And so the captain of the ship communicates with the factory owner. The factory owner sends a message to the U.S. guy and says, we can't ship you your bikes. And so what can you do, right? And so he's out of money for making the bikes, but he can have the bikes. Right? He got all those pre-orders. So like it was just nightmare. And of course, the guys did it because they expected him to pay up and just buy that trademark off of them. And it's a situation when you really don't have a good solution. Because what are you going to do? You got to leave those bikes in a container? No, right? You got to pay those guys, a lot of money. You still don't want to do that. But the only good solution to that was to jump into a time machine and go back to one day before those other guys filed their trademark. But
right,
it's not.
Moral of the story, do not make your IP policy or plan dependent on a time machine. It's probably not going to be super helpful.
And that goes really well with the first question you asked me. When should I trademark your brand? Right? When should I trademark my brand? And really the question is that you got to do that one day before somebody else does it.
Yeah.
I think I just came up with a good piece of marketing. Like you can do it anytime, but as long as it's one day before somebody else does it, right? Well, except you don't know when they do.
Yeah. So there's a question I like to ask all my guests, and it is this. What is the one thing, what is the biggest secret, that one thing that you wish everybody watching or listening today knew?
I think it's that a lot of people think that intellectual property is just for the big guys, for the big companies with billions of dollars, but not for the little guy. And I think it's just the opposite, because the big guys have all the money in the world that they can drown you with, litigation and, all their motions and, all of that wonderful stuff that the lawyers do. They have the money to do that, even if they're wrong, and you're still going to lose. IP is designed to help the little guy fight with the big guys. Wow. Because then at least you have something that you can fight them with. And if you do, there's going to be a lineup of lawyers who will want to sue the big guys because they see a potential win, and big guys have money, right? So don't look at intellectual property and trademarks in particular as something that, hey, I'm going to do it later when I become big and famous. Again, by the time it's going to be too late. And if you look at all the success stories, you'll see that these guys file their trademarks really early on. One of my favorite examples is Bird, that electric scooter company. So they filed, they were actually one of the, so I think I read the news sometime in 22 or 21. They became the fastest company to get to $1 billion valuation, right, in history. And what they did is they filed their trademark 13 days after they started the company. Like before any launches, before any announcements, before anything, right? They started the company, they went for a trademark because they knew that if they are to become successful, they needed to own the brand, because there's a lot of scooters out there. So they wanted to make sure that they could stop everyone else from calling their scooters Bird. And they do, and they did. And now, they're $1 billion company. But when they started, they weren't. They were just a few kids in the garage. And that's what pretty much every single business, when it started, was a nothing burger. There's this wonderful image that gets passed around all the time with the way founders of hugest companies look like when they started those companies. And it says, would you have invested? Like, I think it has like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, all those, right? They don't look like someone who will have built $1 billion company. They didn't have the money to do it, but they had the brains to act like what you're building is worth something. So that's really probably the one secret that I don't want you to be someone who succeeds on the second try after your first brand was stolen from you. I want you to do it right the first time around, because it hurts. Robert Kiyosaki with his wallets, the Velcro, right? It's he always talks about this, that he came up with this genius idea about Velcro wallets, and he didn't bother to protect it, and so the whole business was ruined because of all the copycats, right? It taught him a great lesson, but I'm sure he wishes he didn't have to learn that lesson the hard way. So that's kind of the secret.
Fantastic. Well, Andrei, there's some folks listening, and this is just that last, like, oh my goodness, I have not done this. I have to do it. I have to move now. But they're still like, how do I do it? How it feels foggy and muddy. Like, how do you actually do it? I believe that's where your company comes alongside and helps. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how folks can get in touch with you.
Sure. So Trademark Factory, as you mentioned, we're the only firm out there that offers trademarking services with a guaranteed result for a guaranteed budget. And what that means is that, first of all, we don't want you to file a trademark that has no chance of going through. We'll tell you right away. And if your trademark has less than favorable chance, you should either get a full refund or come up with something else, right? There's no point wasting your time and money on a brand that you can't own. And if we file your trademark and it still gets rejected for whatever reason, you get all your money back, right? That's the most, that's the strongest selling proposition that we have around Trademark Factory. Now, there's two paths that you guys can take. First is, if you just want to learn more about trademarks, you can check out our YouTube channel. I've posted over 1,000 videos there. If you have a question about trademarks, I've probably answered it more than once. So you just go to YouTube and you search for Trademark Factory. And if you're an entrepreneur who's been sitting on a brand thinking, hey, do I need to trademark that or not? Go to trademarkfactory.com. There's a big button that allows you to request a free call with one of our strategy advisors, free call. And their job on that call is to listen to you, to understand your story, and help you figure out whether you are in the situation when you need to trademark that brand. And if you have multiple, how to prioritize. Do you start with a name? Do you go with the logo? Do you go with this country, with that country? So their job is to help you get that clarity out of that call, so that whether you go with us or you go with someone else, which is, why would you? But even if you don't go with us, you'll still go out of that call with clarity about what you need to do with your brand. And that call is free. So start there, and we'll if you see that there's a good fit between what we can do for you and what you're looking for, we'll be happy to add you to the Trademark Factory family. We've done this for over 4,000 people, and you could be one of them.
Fantastic. Well, Andrei, thank you so much for being on the show. It's just an honor and privilege having you here. Fantastic conversation. For those of you watching and listening, you know that your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.